Tu veux m'inspirer un peu, bonjour.
Oui, Guy Goulet.
Nicolas Roger, enfin c'est... Bonjour, Nicolas Roger.
Il était juste hier pour le cas de entrepreneuriat.
Oui. Super bien aidé.
C'est long, hein?
Hier, j'étais épuisé.
Je travaille pour la compagnie là-bas. C'est notre industrie. Bonjour Victoria. Bonjour Victoria.
Donc, avec notre hiver québécois. Oh, pardon. Désolée.
Each team has 20 minutes to present the case to the judge. I will show a board for the 10, 5, last 2 minutes and the last 30 seconds of the presentation. During the last 10 seconds of the speech, I will indicate by means of my two hands the number of remaining seconds. I think not having hidden his presentation after 20 minutes will be stopped to move to the period of question. A period of question of a maximum of 5 minutes is assigned to the jury at the end of the presentation. I would like to remind to each judge that it's mandatory to ask at least one question during this period. I will invite the judges to introduce themselves.
So I understand the presentation will be in English.
Yes.
I'm Guy Goulet. I'm the President and the Chief Executive Officer of Genius Properties. I'm a geological engineer. I've been working in that business for the past 30 years.
Hi, my name is Victoria Smagnoto. I'm the Director of Internationalization and Branding for Ecotech Quebec, which is the clean tech cluster of Quebec.
My name is John Booth. I was originally trained as a biologist and a lawyer. I was an investment banker for many years, now a fund manager and on the board of Genius.
Donc, avec notre hiver québécois qui se fait assez froid ces temps-ci, il arrive souvent qu'on va avoir des pannes de voiture. Donc là, quand on a une panne, notre auto ne démarre pas et on se retrouve à appeler un parent ou un ami. Cette personne-là, après notre appel, va se pointer, nous aider à continuer notre route. Pour nous, Genius Properties est cet ami. C'est quelqu'un sur qui on peut compter et qui va respecter ses engagements. Donc aujourd'hui, je suis avec Emma, Devin et moi-même, Valérie, et nous allons vous présenter notre solution, ou du moins notre recommandation pour votre nouvelle introduction au Pérou. Notre présentation sera en anglais, mais vous pouvez nous poser les questions en français ou en anglais à la fin, nous allons répondre. So now I'll just have a quick overview of the agenda for today. We're going to have the presentation of Genius Properties, just a quick overview, the current situation with the new acquisition, the issue in the Peruvian new area, the commitments that were already made by the company, the opportunity that we saw, the stakeholder analysis since there are a lot of stakeholders involved, our solution and our recommendation, which will be El Proyecto Renacimiento, which means the new birth, the rebirth, our implementation, and a few key takeaways. So Genius Properties Ltd. has for mission to be the leader in mining projects development. So we are really focused on being the best, and we really have great manners of doing our business. Our vision, though, is to conduct environmentally conscious operations worldwide and taking into account all stakeholders. So we really consider the communities, the media, governments, everyone. We want them involved and active in our company and all the projects that we do. So the key values for Genius Properties is innovation, transparency, and responsibility, since it is really taken they really take into account all stakeholders, as I mentioned.
So now we're going to go over the current situation for Genius. So the mining industry in Peru represents 56% of exports and 35% of income taxes. So it means that our role as a Genius in the mining industry in Peru will have like a huge impact on the economy, on the social, and on the environmental side in Peru. And also what we decided to do as Genius is to merge with Cerro de Pasco Resources, which is one of the oldest mining there in Peru and is known as the mining capital. And the NPV of the project will be around 566 million over these 15 years that we're going to be operating as a mining company in Peru. So what we're going to go through now is the main issues that we are encountering over there. So one of the main issues is the contamination. So the level of arsenic in children's blood is very high, and 75% are considered as being dangerous for the children. So that is something that we're going to have to work on to continue being able to be seen as suitable to operate over there. Then it's the living condition. So the poverty is very present in Cerro de Pasco, and the house isolation is very bad. So they don't have any noise isolation, but also warm isolation, because over there it's a city that is very highly placed, so one of the highest, and so it can go -0 sometimes, like below 0. So they're really struggling with this living condition. And what we really have to work on also is this trust. So we have to come up with a trustworthy image for this new project, because in the past we had some really harmful legal and political scandals, and moreover in the medias also we had a lot of negative feedbacks as Cerro de Pasco is the mining. So we have to come up with a Renacimiento project that will come up with a new reputation, a new relationship with all our stakeholders and all the communities to have a smooth operation lifecycle. So now we're going to go through the commitments. So we are going to be responsible for all of the actions. We are going to improve the overall quality of the mine sector in Cerro de Pasco. And we're going to try to come up with a lot of support for the communities in order to have this trust relationship that I talked about. And also I lived in Peru, and I know that the agreement with the Quechuas indigenous, it's very important, just as a symbolic approval for the government and everyone working with this mining to be appreciated. And then we're going to increase economic activity. So there's going to be a lot of employees that are going to come with this project. So 2,500 direct and 2,500 indirect. So this is going to increase economic activities by a lot, and then give royalties to the Peruvian government by being installed on their land, and supply resources to the communities also.
So our opportunity statement in light of this situation is that today Genius Properties has the opportunity to redefine the perception that is already existing in the Cerro de Pasco area. And what we really want you to promote is transparency, education, and advancement.
So, just touching on the strategy, we basically understand that social, economic, and environmental are three things that are not only important individually, but they're interchangeable. I mean, these are holistic qualities that if the economy or social is impacted, usually the environment is impacted, and vice versa. So we want to make sure that our solutions are endogenous and that they impact each segment together and separately. So this is just an overview, and then we'll dive into each more closely. So the first, we want to take a look at social, where we propose implementing a stakeholder engagement team comprised of the different stakeholders and representatives so that we can clearly communicate our message, but also consult adequately and appropriately with the different parties. We want to make sure that there's always a Genius point of contact. So currently there are 2 employees that are dedicated to interacting with the community. I understand that they are only there for 3 weeks. So we want to make sure that that time is staggered, that their leave is staggered, so there's always someone for the community to go to. We also propose a back-to-school marathon. This is something that has a history of success in Peru, as well as a breakfast program to help educate schools within the area. In terms of the economy, we propose implementing a co-op program with the university in the area, as well as a Peruvian advancement initiative to help sort of transition this Peruvian talent rather into positions of upper management. Additionally, for environmental, we want to improve the access to water and implement a warm home program that we'll touch on a little bit later. So first we'll start with social. The first we want to look at is the stakeholder engagement team. So obviously when dealing with foreign countries, especially developing countries, we want to make sure that the first step is communication and really discussing with the different stakeholders to make sure that the decisions we're making are appropriate and effective. So what we propose is implementing a consultative board of representatives comprised of these key stakeholders. So these key stakeholders include not just the community and the government and Genius ourselves, but also other organizations such as NGOs and performance measurement organizations that can help to measure some of the things that might be adversely impacting the communities. The main roles of this stakeholder engagement team would include consultation. So for example, discussing with a representative of the community or a representative of the government of how our decisions, or your decisions rather, may be impacting the area. But also performance measurement. So there are a lot of great NGOs and organizations within this area that are already performing studies. So we want to make sure that they're included in the conversation so that we can properly track our progress and also leverage their core competencies. Additionally, this is great for communication so that when we have all these representatives together, they can then go and liaise with their own respective groups so that there isn't a missing link. Now, the second component of maintaining transparency with regarding the social component to our strategy is this Genius point of contact. So like I said, we want staggered leave for the in-community employees so that there's never no Genius in-community person that community members can reach out to and let them know if they have any questions or concerns. So the second part of social is education and engagement. So now that we've implemented this transparency, we want to try and educate people on the fact that Genius really does believe that this is beneficial for the community. And if we really do believe that, then it's just a matter of effectively communicating this message to the public. Now, the first way we want to do this is a back-to-school marathon. So my colleague, Emma, she lived in Peru for 3 years, and she noted that one of the really, one of the best things that some companies did in order to kind of combine the company employees with the community is a marathon. So basically what it is all the employees and the community members, they train together, and then on a specific day they run together. This is kids and adults included, and it's a great way to kind of show a face behind Genius, so it's not just a company, but it's really people behind the company that are able to interact and demonstrate that they're all working together towards one solid cause. And what we wanted to do is a back-to-school marathon because we recognize that these are poor communities, so it'd be great if that we could fundraise and dedicate resources such as backpacks and bikes specifically to children at the end of this run. So it's really like people are all training towards something greater. And what's another thing that's great is that it's positive media coverage. So again, like with the history of success in Peru, this is something that has demonstrated a history of success, and it's something to be excited about. But more importantly, we also want to take a look at a breakfast program. So how are we educating the children about the adverse effects of water contamination, where to stay away from, and what to do in case this happens or that happens. And we thought a great way to do this would be a breakfast program. So we basically, or Genius would go to these schools, provide breakfast to the kids, and provide interactive workshops in order to help them understand the situation that they're in with the mine in the location. And the idea is that this would also reduce the economic burden on parents as well, because it'll obviously take some dilemma off their back from having to provide breakfast for one day. Now, looking into the economic, we really want to focus on advancing communities. And the first part, like I said, is the co-op program at the local university. So what we really want to do is streamline talent to Genius. So there's obviously talent in the area, students, Peruvian students specifically, learning the talent that may be necessary in either an operational or management role. So we want to make sure we streamline that to fit into Genius's culture and how they operate. As well, we want to reduce the recruitment burden. So as we know, even here in Canada, when you have co-op programs, It reduces the recruitment burden of having to interview a bunch of people and find this local talent. In other words, it's coming to you, so it's really great in that regard. And it also increases local engagement. So if you're planning on being in Peru for 15 years, it's great to have some tighter ties in local talent that's really connected to the company. But we want to go a step further and look at something called the Peruvian Advancement Rate Program, or the PAR program. So we want to demonstrate, this has been similar to situations within South Africa, like the Black Economic Empowerment Act, which basically takes local community members that have been traditionally marginalized and then takes that talent and brings them and makes sure that their voices are heard, not just within an operational level, but within a management level. So what we want to make sure is that this talent that we're streamlining into Genius, we're also making sure that these voices are being heard throughout the management process, so that these managers can then have a voice, and that also creates a more sound decision-making process because they have that local knowledge that can then have spillover effects to the rest of the management.
Okay, so there are no slides. It's not the right version. Okay, so we'll just go on.
Okay.
Wait, let me just come here. Okay, so we'll go on with environment.
Now that we went through the social and economic part, we're going to go through the environmental part. So we wanted to tackle the problem of access to water. So for a short-term project, what we thought of, it's having nets. So it's nets with really thin holes that captures all the fog, all the rain, all the snow that comes in the atmosphere, and that will go through the net and then through a tube, and then access the water from the net to the houses for the people. So this is very accessible water because it is water from the atmosphere and from the air with the fog, and then it is just accessible because you can put it like I don't know, 50 meters from your house. So this will bring water and accessibility to water to community and to the local people that are living in Cerro de Pasco. Then we also have the warm home program. So what we'll do is install a new installation infrastructure and installation material into the houses so that they can reduce their energy or resource consumption to fill the house with warmth, and also having a living condition that will be much, much better. And also what we thought of is having partnerships with NGOs and also scientific teams that will do a whole analysis and study of the chemical composition of the atmosphere, of the soil, so that we can really detect which areas are our priority to tackle for environmental cleanup, for example, or to have, I don't know, danger panels, for example, or science panels that will say to the students or to the local people where not to go, where not to play with for the children, for example. And so that's it for the environmental side.
So I'll go on with the stakeholder analysis and then lead them into the implementation. So for the social, the really main point and the first focus for Genius is the communication, to establish great communication within the community, the government, and Genius. And the stakeholders that we, that we saw are the communities, the Peruvian community, also the Quechua community. Since land is very important to them, we want their approval. And I know that, I know that the residuals are put 1.5 kilometers away. So we really want to make sure that it's not in their land or a place that they really have at heart. So that would really be short term. As soon as the project really starts, we really want to have this done. And the Genius point of contact is tied really with this to have great communication. On the long term, like medium term, I would say, is the back to school marathon and the breakfast program to really give knowledge and have a little bit of sensibility to the people, to know the dangers of it, since there's a lot of problems with health. And the back to school marathon to have a little bit of media coverage.
So I'm sure you all are interested in financials, and while there weren't too many financials that were given to us, we decided to make some assumptions that might be able to be interesting in terms of how the strategy would work out. So we thought that based on the NPV, I believe it's 566 million over 15 years. So if we were to divide that by 3 and look at a 5-year plan, we're looking at about 190 million. So if we were to take 1.3% of that NPV, which would be about $2.54 million, that's what we're looking at most likely dedicating to a project like this. And we think that's fair given the fact that from an ethical and sustainable standpoint, Genius has a big role to play in the community. So the majority of this money would most likely go to the Warm Home program. So for example, we'd be able to implement 200 homes over 5 years, and that would cost about $1.6 million. And with the rest of the money left over, we would be able to dedicate a certain amount of money to the Back to School Marathon and the breakfast program. So this would pay for the bicycles and the backpacks, as well as the breakfast for children. So for example, for the breakfast program, we would be able to reach 30,000 children at about $5 a breakfast, and this would cost something around the margins of, I think, $500,000. So in total, this would all come to about $2.54 million. And again, like I said, 1.3% of the NPV, so this is something that we think is appropriate, and we're open to more questions in Q&A about the assumptions we made regarding that. So just to wrap up, what we really want to take a look at are the key takeaways. And the key takeaways are the 3 components to the strategy, which are transparency, education, and advancement. So with transparency, we really want to look at demonstrating that we know that this is beneficial for the community, but because of the tarnished reputation in the past of mining in general, we need to be very clear with all the stakeholders involved that this is something to be concerned about, and this is what we're doing in order to alleviate the situation. The second is education. So not just being transparent about the information, but ensuring that people have open access to this education and that people are able to understand what we're telling them. So this is really important, and this is what we demonstrate not just through the breakfast program, but we're also able to implement through these co-op programs to kind of uplift the economy. And that's where the advancement comes into play. With the Peruvian Advancement Rate Program, the PAR program, this is the ability to not only support the community, but advance them further and demonstrate that, and basically allow them to understand that there's a reason why your company is called Genius. Thank you. And now open the floor for questions.
You presented us 8 different initiatives, the ones that you had before. If you had to prioritize just one, which would you be?
I think that the co-op program is the most feasible. I think it's also great because it doesn't cost a lot of money on the end of Genius, but it is a great way to kind of integrate Peruvian and the local talent into the company. The reason why I think the co-op program is great is because not only does it help to strengthen the ties between the community and the company, but it also builds upon the local economy and reduces the recruitment burden for Genius. So it's kind of a twofold where it doesn't cost a lot of money, it reduces the recruitment burden, and it also helps to strengthen the ties, especially when we're talking about a 15-year engagement.
So a comment and then a question. First of all, I thought it was excellent. So congratulations to these. Well thought through, innovative, well presented. It was really good. Directly on point, spotted the issues. Just, yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that stuff. Probably not. Sorry. My question is around the fog trapping.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Okay, so I saw a documentary that a lot of people in Peru don't have access to water. So what they have, it's like trucks coming in like every certain days, and sometimes they just are lacking of water because the truck is late. So what they had, it's like a big net that catches the fog in the air. So it's like, and then the net like has like the water goes through the net to like a tube and like feels like a tank.
So this is in use somewhere already?
Oh yeah, in Peru. It's like a startup thing, but it's on, and so we thought that while they were waiting, or sometimes when you don't have any water, this is like a great way to have like an environmentally friendly option to have access to water, because it's in the air, and you just have to put the net, and you can use it for days and days. You just have to clean it up, like once maybe a month, I don't know, but yeah.
So, is this in your budget?
Yes, it was.
Are you sure about that? Because you're talking
Absolutely.
2.5 million a year per year. Is that right?
It's 2.5 million over a 5-year term. And again, these were based on assumptions of how much Genius would be comfortable dedicating of this NPV, but of course it could be scaled up.
So you're running out of water here. There's not enough. You have to put a lot more. There's 70,000 people there.
So according
You're
to
running out of budget, I think.
well, according to Emma, just based off her information on how these nets work, it's about 1 net for every 5 homes. And usually, especially within Peru, families are much larger within one household. Here, it's maybe about 3 or 4. In Peru, I think it's about maybe almost 6.
Yeah, you have like the grandparents and the parents, like everyone's living in one
Right.
house.
So we estimated about 12,000 homes within the area, given 70,000 people, and then for 1 net for every 5 homes, and the net's costing I think about $100. We would be able to scale that up over time. So again, over that 15-year period, we'd start with I think maybe I think we said 1,000 homes, and then we'd be able to scale up over the course of time.
Other question or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the soil there is highly contaminated. I don't see here any initiative touching that point. Would you do something about this or no?
That was my question.
Good.
That was my question.
So on the short term, we really have the initiative of educating children, because we know that they play a lot in the ground and they don't really know the consequences of it. So it's really an education that we want to do for the parents and for the children. So since it's already contaminated, it's really hard to just take it out and put new soil. So we're mostly thinking of having, for example, the breakfast program, which is with children and with adults. And yeah.
Thank you.
Just to add up, one of the commitments was an environmental cleanup, and as I said, in the environmental solution, we will have like these scientific teams and NGOs that will analyze the soil and the soil composition, like chemical, so we can like list a priority of zones of where to come up with the cleanup environmental solution.
La période de questions est terminée.
Si.
Merci beaucoup.